Well, welcome, young and old, to the greatest escape room show. It's Puzzle Talk, and I'm Tone, and I'm here this week with Christina and Mike.
Hello.
Hey.
There he is. There's that face. The face we've all come to know and love. Mike. Well, welcome to the newest episode of Puzzle Talk. We're just coming off the heels of opening the Greatest Freak Show, which opened, has it been a week now?
Yeah.
It's a week now.
Thereabouts.
Everything's a blur now. I think I just got back on a sleep schedule like a day ago.
I haven't.
You weren't even here for part of most of that.
Doesn't matter. Between that overnight shoot and then the day I stayed here till 6 in the morning, my sleeping schedule was shot.
I know Chris still has not gotten himself on schedule.
Poor bastard.
He fell asleep at his desk 2 times last week. Right in the middle of the day. But, so Chris basically medicates himself to stay awake and focused every day. I mean, at least for the most part, most of the stuff we were all doing, we were moving around. And actually like able to keep ourselves a little more energized. Chris was locked in a closet for like 12-hour stretches, literally at what looked like a wire switchboard, just like input, output, input, output, input, out.
Somebody walked in the door. Excuse me.
So I don't know how he stayed awake.
Yeah, I don't. Caffeine.
Yeah, a lot of caffeine. But Ryan from a local staffing company is downstairs.
Exciting.
You're talking too loud! Don't ever visit us again. So yeah, I guess suffice to say, a lot of us are still recovering from all of that. That was a hectic opening, and that was a game that we had so much done ahead of time, and it's still. If that's the staffing guy again. Someone just walked in and said, "I just want to look." I don't think you can window shop an escape room.
Not usually.
Open the door.
Like a few people see when we were building, like the process. But...
Yeah. So Freak Show's open. It's been a madhouse. We have 20 people coming in at 2:00 to play.
Oh, great.
I totally lost track of where we were at on the 4:30, but I know the 4:30 was filling up as of last night, and then the last showing of the night is sold out.
Nice.
So we're oversold for the 2:00. We're somewhere in the middle on the middle showing, and then the last showing of the night is totally sold out. Mind you, at $50 a ticket to all of you $19.99 a person escapers. Todd's watching. People that do that to you too. We don't get a lot of that. It's not all that typical that someone walks in and is like, "I want to peek." Every once in a while, corporate groups send someone in. They want to see the space.
Yeah,
and,
that are kids. I think.
But yeah, so Freak Show's doing quite well. It's booked like every single day, I know, for the next week. So we haven't seen that kind of response since Cure Z opened in Red Bank the first time. So that's good. Christina looks much more rested.
I had the weekend off, or I had Friday, Saturday off.
Now our positioning's off again. Mike, now Christina's in full frame and Mike's gone.
Shove over. Quit hogging the limelight.
There we go. That's better. So it was hectic. As a result, Puzzle Talk has been kind of like thrown together each week because, we've been in the thick of all that. And today, however, we didn't have to put much work into setting up our broadcast area because we're spending the whole episode on one major topic because every year, RoomEscapeArtist.com, David and Lisa release the State of the Industry report based on mostly openings and closures in the industry. So we figured we'd kind of go through that and break it down piece by piece and kind of discuss it because it does correlate to a lot of the previous topics we've had on the show. So I guess, we'll get right into it. So State of the Industry 2019. So hopefully, if you're watching, you may have seen this already, but we'll kind of, throw our take on a lot of this and where we think things are and where they're going. Before we even really jump into the brunt of what they wrote about, one thing I'd like to talk about is the Room Escape conference ended. It was just this past week, and from what I understand, it was not exactly an extravaganza. There were less vendors, less topics, and a lot less people in attendance. It dropped off to such a degree that next year the Room Escape conference is in St. Louis, and it is part of the Haunt Show. So it is no longer its own thing. It's being grouped in with the Haunt conference, which is massively larger. Now, in all fairness, the Haunt conference did always have, well, not always, but since escape rooms started becoming big, they have their own section called Escape City, which is basically for like all the haunts that have an escape room to show off what they do at their stuff. So I'd imagine they're just going to slightly expand, and I say slightly because from what I saw of the showroom floor, from photos and videos from others, it's not exactly like that place was jam-packed. So it was like every booth had a massive amount more space than they used to, and there was a lot of open space of dead air around them. So not nearly as many people attending the conference, which is funny because the amount of escape rooms in the country is at an all-time high, and that conference doesn't only attract U.S. When Frank and I went to the conference the 2 years we were there, we met people from other countries too. So it does attract owners from all over the world. Good day, hugs and love to all. Welcome, Ralph. Good to see you. So it's a little telling, I think, of what the industry report says, that things are starting to kind of level. And as we're going to see in the report, there's a lot of closings happening. A lot. So I stick by my words of the industry's not going anywhere, but it's definitely leveling off. And I think all the people that thought this was going to be a get-rich-quick scheme have learned it's not. I remember David and Lisa had said in a conversation a while back that the industry is going to be at this major epic height of openings until their leases expire for the first time. And then we're going to see who actually did well or not because they're not going to renew their leases. And a ton of that has happened. Beyond that, acquisitions, mergers, the whole industry is kind of changing in its landscape a little bit as things get a little more, I guess, intensified. So let's see what the numbers say. In August of 2019, there are more than 2,350 escape room facilities in the United States. Now, if you look at the graph that they have, you could follow along. We'll give them some traffic. You can follow along on RoomEscapeArtist.com for that. There were 2,300 in 2018. So we've only increased by 50 escape room companies.
What I found particularly interesting, though, on that point is that it raised 50 points over the last year, but they removed like 240
from the directory.
From the directory in 2019 alone.
So far.
So I mean, it seems to be like for like the several hundred that closed, that amount more opened.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty interesting.
And in my opinion, so actually they have closures by year. 2017 was 80 closures. 2018 was 261 for the whole year, and then 19 we're at 247 and we're halfway. So this is going to be the year probably of the most closures by a landslide. And I think that where we're seeing there was still a whole ton of new companies, I think they're going to have that immediate wake-up call that, of all these companies closing. So I think 2020 is going to probably even see a bigger shift.
Are these reports yearly, or are these,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see what the report is next year.
Yep.
In light of all of that information.
Yeah, they let this out at the conference each year. So this time next year, we'll be seeing it again. Actually, I think the conference is in March next year. If anybody knows, does that conference happen at the same time each year? But no, it's typically within a month of a margin of itself. Next year, so actually this year was the first time ever they announced when it was next year at the conference. Probably to be like, hey, everybody come back. We don't want to lose more of you. But it's going to be in St. Louis, Missouri, as part of the Haunt Show. So I believe it's in March, but don't quote me on that. Please look it up before you go booking a flight. But, I mean, if you look at escape room facilities in 2014, that's when we signed our lease in Red Bank. There were 24.
Yeah.
In the whole country. So we were one of 24. In 2015, when Architect was playing through, it expanded to 100. In 2016, when we opened QRZ, 900. 17, when we opened Morristown, we became 2 facilities out of 1,850.
So it doubled over the course of a year.
Yeah. Yep. And then in 18, 2,300. Still a big jump, but not crazy. And now 19, we're at 2,350 currently. There was also a report that had come out between 16 and 17 from Nate Martin from Puzzle Break, talking about the extremely low barrier to entry of escape rooms and how cheap it is to open them. That's literally when that explosion happened. Because there was this kind of falsified concept of, like, for example, Red Bank opened on $16,000 and then pre-sales.
Yeah.
But Escape the Architect and Freak Show are at a very different scale experience.
Yeah.
Puzzle Break opened on, I want to say, like $10,000. I forget what the actual number was, but I'm sure you could find that article. So he was basically like, I opened on 10, I made, a couple $100,000. And that was true in the first year. Because there was no competition, and everyone was making low-quality games. Not to say that, his stuff was low or Escape. It was of its time. By margin, if you were to look at that now, it's low quality. But the industry came a long way.
It's like the point that we've brought up before, that escape rooms are kind of like, or they've kind of become like the zombie movie. Everyone defaults to making a zombie movie because it's cheap and easy. Out of like the 5,000 zombie movies since like 1932, there's maybe like 15 of them that are actually good.
Yeah.
Like you can, 15 is probably being generous. You could probably count on both hands how many good zombie movies there are until have fingers left over. So,
and how many have actually made money?
Yeah. Is
another big point. You've got like realistically in the last 20 years, how many major zombie-oriented movies have there been that have made money? Now, The Walking Dead gave a big explosion to the zombie genre. But aside from TV, you had the Resident Evil franchise. You had the Dawn of the Dead remake by Snyder. 28 Days Later.
Yeah, it's like you get like the periodic bursts of popularity, and then it kind of dissipates.
And even now, Walking Dead is dropping.
Yeah, even with the announcement of a new show, which is just kind of pointless at this point.
They're making another new show?
Yep.
And a movie. The Rick Grimes story continues in the movie.
They're making several movies, though, aren't they?
It's a trilogy, from what I understand.
Just stop.
So, yeah, that's incredible growth rates, but it seems to have slowed.
Yeah.
And it's probably slowing up now because of all the closings. And as companies start hearing about the closings, it's going to lead to more and more. And as David and Lisa said, as leases expire,
Yeah.
Anyone who is hanging on by a thread is going to choose to walk away. And then there's things that are sort of out of control. Like, for example, how many of these escape room companies took up shop in the lowest possible rent place they could find, and those places closed?
Yeah.
So, if you open in a strip mall that's literally being anchored by, an Ashley's Furniture and nothing else, and that strip mall closes, you're out of your space. A lot of those situations happen because strip malls are dying.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the landlords don't care if they die because they're just using them as write-offs.
There's really no point.
So, with Amazon and online shopping at its highest, nobody's going to the malls anymore. And outdoor strip malls really are not doing any business. So, if you're one store in a strip, you're at the mercy of that strip mall staying open. I remember there was a point, and we're here in New Jersey, there's a town called Succossana that has it's like Succossana Ledgewood and the Ledgewood Mall over there. They were practically giving away real estate in there. And I had a few family members when we were looking to open this location in Morristown that were like, why don't you guys go in there? You could probably get it for $500 a month. And we probably could have. But that building just got demolished.
Yeah, I think that just happened to the Wayne Hills Mall.
Yeah.
They knocked. I don't know what they're doing with it, but that's gone. I think Willowbrook is still thriving. Rockaway's
staying alive.
Yeah, they're there.
But experiential malls are kind of where that's going.
Yeah.
Like the Palisades, where Five Wits is. I don't think they have much to worry about there, but it's just, you can't go into these locations or districts where they're probably going to demolish where your location is, and expect, we just saw one of our one of the other owners we consider a friend out in the UK lost his company because they're closing the strip he's in. So we've seen quite a bit of that. And then actually Nick from iPanic, he landed on his feet just fine and has probably thrived even more since, but he lost his location and had to move into a new one and figure out how to, rip his games out and get them back up real quick. Let's see here.
I think the interesting one is the building or fire code changes.
Well, that was huge, especially after the fire in Poland.
But, even so, it's like we all kind of got a get-out-of-jail-free card for a little while because no one knew what to classify escape rooms. And now that the trend is not really a trend anymore, people are paying more attention to it.
Yep.
So that one sucks in particular. But
well, there's elements of it sucks, but also it's good. We're not building to kill people.
Yeah, sure. Things that you I'm sure some of these people didn't even think to look for.
Yeah.
We've been boned on a couple things that weren't a problem, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And then the fire department comes in and it's like, you can't do this anymore. So it's like, there's only so many changes you can do before you go bankrupt. So it's like, is it even worth it if the classifications keep changing on a regular basis like that? You're not trying to kill anybody, but at the same time, you got to keep your business open.
Yeah, there's a point where you kind of hit this mark of anything you build new, you got to start building amusement park rules.
Yeah.
You've got to plan for worst case scenario of, the worst possible coding they're going to hit you with.
Yeah.
So if you kind of go in on that premise, you could probably get a little further through. But then there's there's the little things that are always a killer too. It's how many areas where we had to supply new power to the building here because we couldn't run extension cords across the building. And it'd be so much easier to just plug something into an extension cord and run it, to another outlet. But that's a big no-no for fire code. So, and I know there was a fire at an escape room. No one got hurt, but there's the one in Poland was the one everyone talked about because people died. There's been a lot of fires at escape rooms, and not ones where the whole building went down. I know one of them was someone had an extension cord through the wall.
Yeah. And
the connection was in the wall. So it's not like the cable was just through the wall and they were plugging in outside the wall or at a connect.
All it takes is that little bit of separation.
Right. And that's what happened.
You use some common sense, and I'd even say, look at your fuse box to see what you can plug into those fuses. I think we're running 15 amp circuits in this building, which is not standard. Normal big buildings like this, modern buildings, would probably be running off a 30 amp circuit. So don't overload your circuits.
Our landlord's very cheap.
Yeah, so we're you have to be power conscious. Always, it's something that everyone overlooks because they're not electricians. But at a certain point, it's kind of common sense at this point. It's like, know what you can plug into your outlets before blowing a fuse enough. A power strip doesn't alleviate that. It just prevents your stuff from frying, basically.
Right. That's saving your equipment plugged in.
Yeah, that's not saving your power. You're not saving energy by doing that. So we almost did that. So don't do it.
I can't think. Yeah, that's the only one that I particularly remember that was like, how stupid could you be to actually put the connection point in the wall? The heck is that?
It's the zombie apocalypse.
So let's see. Chains and franchises. 72% of the industry are single facility businesses. But others moving into chains and franchises. So, like, for example, down on their report, this I thought was a little crazy, to see, like, how many they had. Escapology moved into New Jersey recently. I think they have, like, 2 or 3 locations in New Jersey. 46 locations.
Impressive.
Impressive or suicide? You decide. I feel like I'd want to kill myself.
Do they build their own games?
I believe what they pretty much... Okay, so for starters, their games are very small.
Yeah.
They're one-room games for the most part.
Are these the ones that are in Rockaway?
No.
Okay.
They are on this list, though.
Yeah.
But Escapology's games are very simple. But it's basically they make a template and then they just build 20 of them.
Right.
Or 46 of them.
So management's not that problematic.
Yeah, they have spares because they have multiple locations running the same stuff.
Yeah.
So, Breakout Games, 44. All-In Adventures, that's the one in the mall. 28.
All-In Adventures.
Key Quest, 28. And Escape the Room, the most original name in the history of the industry, 23. Then you've got the slightly less counted The Escape Game with 15. I've actually never heard of them. The Great Escape Room, I know those guys, that's 12. Amazing Escape Room is at 10. And that's a franchise. There's locations that are not owned by, they are, but they're not. Epic Escape Room, Pan IQ Room with 10. And then Great Room Escape, 9. Texas Panic Room or Project Panic, 8. The Puzzle Effect, 8. And 5-Wits, 7. 5-Wits has expanded. Because he didn't have 7 a couple years ago.
I am getting a kick out of some of the names. I think we talked about this at one point. Like, the lack of originality in all of the...
Yeah.
There's like so many metal bands that all riff on the same, 3 words. And there are all these escape rooms that riff on all, 3 of the same words. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with, brand protection.
Yeah.
Where it's there are so many escape rooms with similar names that if you suck, or someone has this terrible experience, it's going to taint every other variation of your name.
Yep.
So...
there was more on the next page. 60 Out Escape Rooms with 7. Escape Inc. 7. Escape Inc.
Escape Incorporated.
Maze Rooms 7. Room 5280 7. The Escape Room Zone 6. Escape Zone 60 6. Fox in a Box.
Fox in a Box.
That's an interesting name.
It rhymes, so it's gonna stay with people.
Mastermind Escape Games 6. Red Door Escape Room 6. United Escape Rooms 6. So there you have it. Those are franchises with the most locations. Over the 5 years they've been doing this, they've removed 580 facilities from the directory. Out of that, 240 of them were this year.
It's pretty staggering. But again, 240 plus opened in the same period. So that's pretty interesting.
They at the end of the day too, though, you've got your normal business trends. For example, the first 5 years of any business are catastrophically risky.
Yeah.
Most companies don't make 5 years. We're on our 5th. And you could almost see a little bit more of like the revenue security this year. Because there were plenty of times over the last couple of years that we just overextended ourselves dramatically building some of this stuff. And there were threatening months where we definitely could have went under because we were spending more than we were bringing in. So, I kind of feel like we're hitting a security point now, where that blanket's a little bit easier to stay warm under. But really, they say up to a decade before you're in like security with any business. At any point within 10 years, things can happen that can put you under. Like there's elements like they always say have a couple months of all of your bills, utilities, payroll, everything in the bank. We don't. We spent it all on Freak Show. So thankfully closed. Companies that we've received an increasing number of messages telling us that a company has mercifully closed or has finally and thankfully closed. Yes, those are direct quotes from Consistent Map contributors in Pennsylvania. Well, yes, we are kind of in another breed out in the Poconos because the competition out in PA is not exactly stiff. But I took a peek at one place. I'm not saying names, but there's like this giant ass general store in PA that has an escape room in it as well.
That's not the Sex Dungeon one, is it?
No, it's a zombie game.
Oh.
And I looked inside, and oh dear God, it looks like a zombie apocalypse for all the wrong reasons. So a lot of companies that closed up shop apparently sucked, is what they mean by that. Companies that my mortgage broker. Companies, we're looking for new space. Not for another location right now. We're actually looking for warehouse space. There's a lot of companies that I know, like even players who come to see us are like, that place needs to close. So if some of those in that big giant 250 something count closings were those, that's a good thing. Here you go. They actually put this in here. According to the SBA, Small Business Administration, the frequently asked questions, about 80% of small businesses survive the first year. Only 50 get through year 5. This is year 5 for the entire escape room industry, and we were in it from the beginning. So, of the escape room facilities that have been a part of our directory for 5 years, only 1/3 have closed. So the originals are the ones sticking out, probably because they're the ones that made that initial money to make the upgrades as the industry changed.
Yeah.
Reasons for closure that they have compiled. Lack of business acumen. Yeah. Poor product quality. Strife between partners. I could see that. I think we've survived that pretty well, but I could see that. Legal troubles, building or fire code, lease termination by landlord, or investor drama. Lease termination by landlord is one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, but like there's been times where like, here, our landlord has walked in and been like, "What are you doing?" Like panic mode. So, I could see that. I could definitely see that. 24 acquisitions over the last 5 years. More than 50 name changes. All in Adventures is one of those name changes. Because they've had, I think, 3 names now. Just so they could erase all their bad reviews.
It's not a bad plan, but...
It's a little desperate.
Yeah.
State by state. Most popular states are the following: California, Florida, Texas, Pennsylvania, and New York. Now, Pennsylvania is all Philly. Philly has an astronomical amount of escape rooms. I know that.
I was actually in Philly on Friday, and I didn't see any of them. Then again, I wasn't looking. So.
Because the rest of Pennsylvania does not have a lot of escape rooms. New York, Manhattan is loaded. There are tons of escape rooms in Manhattan. One of our friends, Chad, if you're watching, had recently sold his to an existing company there. But there's so many that there's sometimes more than one company in the same building. That was Chad's situation. He was on one floor, another company on another floor, so he sold to the other company. Just, he's in California, so
yeah.
I remember we had a sit-down conversation about that like 2 years ago at one of the conferences, and I was like, Chad, you're literally on the other end of the country. I understand,
Was he the earthquake guy?
Yes.
They played here, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah. So, there's that. Colorado, state with the most escape rooms per capita. For the most part, states with smallest population remain the fewest: Wyoming, Vermont, District of Columbia, and Alaska. Speaking of Alaska, because I heard she was moving to the Arctic, did you see Valerie got married over the weekend?
Yeah.
I did.
One of our former team members who left for love.
Didn't even know she was engaged.
She wasn't.
Oh, there we go. Spur of the moment kind of thing, I guess.
I believe he's military.
Oh.
And he's stationed, I think, in the Arctic. And there's rules about like who can stay with you.
What did he do to get transferred to the Arctic?
I think so that she could actually stay on base with him, they had to be married.
Oh, interesting.
So, I'm sure there was also love and all that fluffy stuff.
One would hope.
One would hope. They're total CrossFit addicts together, so CrossFit binds. It's a cult. States with the fewest per capita include Kentucky, surprise, surprise, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, and New York, which oddly is also on for the most.
Are they referring to New York State?
Probably. Yeah.
There's a whole lot of nothing in some of these states too, so.
Interested in escape rooms tends to go up per year. There's a massive spike in Q1 of 2019, which is exactly when the Poland fire happened. Which was then followed by the escape room movie. So, I don't know. I can't call that good timing. That was bad timing. So, all in all, what do we think about all this? Companies are closing. Newer ones are opening. Are they going to close too?
Maybe.
I don't know. It's kind of a weird spot because, as I said, or as the report says, for the 240 escape rooms that closed between now and January, that many more opened in a year. So it's like it's kind of replaced itself a little bit. So next year I think will be the one that will kind of determine whether this is a fluke or not. But those are the results I'm more interested in seeing right now. It kind of plateaued, but it's still going to fluctuate a little bit. But
well, and on the same token, we're also going to see now how many companies are going to continue to open in the second half of the year versus how many more will continue to close in the second half of the year. Because we're about to head into the deadest time of year for the industry overall. September is usually a flatline month for almost everyone because of so many families getting ready to go back to school. We're in a little bit of a security blanket on that too because Freak Show is brand new. And we have corporate events already booked in September. So that's going to we've got Rutgers direct end of August, and then we've got the trip to Maryland for the casino event in September. We have some very big events that'll make up some revenue for us for what drops off in location. But for the most part, companies flatline in September. And then it starts pulling back up in October. Oddly enough, I know for a lot of companies, everyone thinks Halloween's this massive month for the escape room industry. It's not. We're competing with haunted houses. And escape rooms are not a haunt. It's not a Halloween event. Unless it's a direct horror game.
Halloween here was completely dead last year, too. I bought like $50 of candy, and those bags of candy lasted well into December. So, no one came.
But, for us, it's November, December. That's the, holy crap, we can't keep people away months of the year. That week of Thanksgiving for us is huge. And then December is very big. And then that week that everyone's off for Christmas is insane.
Yeah.
So, I have a feeling Freak Show is going to just be flat out sold out that entire period.
One would hope.
Yeah.
Todd, it's interesting being in a smaller market in the Midwest because we are behind the trends by about 3 to 4 years. Watching the larger markets is like seeing the future to us. We're your crystal ball, Todd. There's a crystal ball inside Freak Show and it works. It's pretty cool. Yeah, that's a fair point. I know a lot of, even when we went into the Poconos, when we played a few of the games in the nearby area, we were immediately like, okay, we're at least 2 years ahead of most of these companies. So, and what we put there is ahead of most of the companies in New Jersey. So, I would say the smaller markets still, they can be a little safer with that, Todd. But on the same token, you're in a smaller market, so you're probably not seeing the amount of people come through. That's your pull and tug. Anything else to contribute, guys?
Not really.
Well, that's our take on the State of the Industry report. Oh, we were starting to talk about the Room Escape Conference and how it got combined into the Haunt one. Christina and I were talking about this a bit on the way there. How we think it is time for that conference to just completely change form, and we need EscapeCon. Instead of marketing the conference strictly to owners, start pushing it to enthusiasts as well, and basically make the Comic-Con for escape rooms.
It wouldn't hurt. I think it would bring a little bit more awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And you can test out new concepts there too, I think, because I'm sure you'll need... what's the point of going to an escape room con if there's nothing to play?
Well, at the conferences, every year there's stuff to play.
Yeah, but I mean, the only people playing them are other business owners.
Right.
So you have to kind of...
Enthusiasts would enjoy that. You could have a booth where, there's some stuff that's samples of your content to play.
I think that would be a good idea for some owners, too, to kind of, we have some ideas, we can test it out first and see what the reception's like, and then implement it if it's successful. Stuff like that.
I know there's enthusiasts, even for us, that are always like, what's next and what are you doing next? And, to have a venue where, you can promote what you have coming in the next year, what new rooms you're opening. We have so many players that love behind-the-scenes looks and, talking to us after the game about how it's made. You could do seminar panels of just basically, meet and greets with companies.
You can cosplay as Mrs. Cabot.
You can cosplay. People coming in as the boogeyman.
Dressed as the Scarecrow.
Well, if you dress as the Scarecrow, it's an invitation to be fondled because everyone fondled that
Everyone
Scarecrow.
fondles the Scarecrow, unfortunately.
Or you could come in as Ulrich, the strong man, and people will beat you with a hammer every time they see you.
Zombie Dr. Brannigan, you just make poop noises.
Freak Show has this giant strong man that comes into the game at a point. And for some reason, everyone who gets his giant magic hammer decides to beat the hell out of him when they get it.
Poor bastard.
Yeah, it's been getting a little dangerous. But, all right, guys, we're getting back to work because we have a 20-player Freak Show game at 2 o'clock. And the rest of the day is packed. So we will see you guys next